Any questions? Tom?
Where does connotation fit?
Who are you asking?
Connotation,
Yeah.
where does connotation fit with respect to concepts and interpretation?
I think connotation fits, we share concepts, but we don't share the entirety of them. Like the concept is just a holder, and we agree what's a chair and what's not a chair, but we may have had experiences with a lot of different kinds of chairs than other people have. That's the connotation part of the concepts. So, I mean, we've been trafficking in words for a while now, a couple days, and I use the word day, and I just assume that your understanding of the day is the same as mine, and it may not be. I mean, that's a pretty good one, because that's kind of a natural category. So we do have sunrise and sunset. Nobody has like a 17-hour, 10-hour day per se. But there are some days that feel longer to some people, some days that feel shorter to others, and so even a simple word like day, we're still able to traffic in it, even if we don't tag it with the same kind of meaning. So I think that's where connotation is. It means we're capable of communicating, but we shouldn't really feel so certain about what exactly we're doing, because what's going on in somebody else's head when they're hearing the words that we're sharing may be really different than what we imagine we're getting them. Does that say okay?
Over here? Yeah, go ahead.
Two things. Well, for Marcy, you mentioned attention versus attending, and it reminded me of Korzybski and this idea of language versus languaging. You know, instead of we say we use language versus we are languaging, this ongoing thing. But Tiffany.
What?
I had windows on my sweater. I didn't like it. Icons. Yes, Joshua? Comments?
Knowing you inherited that class from me, sorry.
Yes.
Thinking about like the way you're framing it makes me think of like Irving Dobson's impression management. So it could be an online impression management class rather than, but just thinking out loud. I mean, y'all both, y'all all giving me a lot to think about. But just thinking out loud about language versus languaging, impression management, or that kind of thing. I don't know.
No, let's do it. My supervisors at Duquesne were like, Duquesne is awesome because you have a thought and you're like, oh, I have a thought. And they're like, great, write about it, create it. And I was like, oh, okay, so I'm going to make the class. So let's do it.
Yeah, so
It's buzzing now.
maybe present progressive, I feel the meeting.
Sorry.
Maybe just don't touch
Yeah, I find living in the flowing dynamic time that is our reality is extremely important. English specifically has something like, 2 to 5 times as many nouns as it does the other forms of speech. We nounify, we thingify everything, which is awful because that means that we identify it, and it means that instead of the horizon when you're at the beach being a curve, what it means is that you've sliced it into this linear part. But the linearity can be the death of the species. And there was a quote that someone said something like that, right? So what you're mentioning about presencing versus presence, right? Attending, I think it's an extremely important reality for all of us to live into, that there's this dynamic flow, and that is the instantiation of our lives in that moment. There's no existence, right, other than that, or this now. And it's extremely important. Yes, there's everything before and everything after. However, the choice, not the decision, the choice, which is the opening of options, not the closing down. The choice is right here, right now, how we attend. So thank you for bringing that up. The other thing, which is something that Tiffany also just alluded to, is, and Valerie, yeah. There isn't one understanding, be it a denotation or connotation. Con means with, however, there's 75 people here. There are 75 understandings of what each of us says. So there isn't one of me, there's 75 of me, and frankly, I have no idea what the 75 are that are out there. because you aren't ever in your entire lifetime going to be able to explain to me how you're hearing and living within what is communicated, right? One last thing, and then I'm going to be quiet. AI, artificial information processing. Let's not aggrandize this. Let's not maximize it. Let's smallify this until blood runs through the veins of the computer chip. These things will not care about us. And there's a generation of people using AI as therapists who say the perfect thing, and they know how to make you feel worthy and understood and felt. Then when you turn to a human being who responds in a way that's not as perfect as you're used to, you're crushed. So we're fragilizing everything with it, just in that regard. So I'll pause there, but anybody wants to talk about that, I would love to get to learn from you.
I think we have time for one more. In back over there.
I guess I don't want to get too many questions. But I think perception and concepts and interpretation are sort of front of mind states, and we have an awful lot of back of mind states. We have feelings and concerns, awarenesses, insights, voices, animal spirits. That's John Maynard Keynes' phrase for the rumination that we go through with assembling all of that to come to a willingness to take a risk in doing something, in going to action. The animal spirits way back in mind. And of course we have our luminal and irritating selves that are in little pockets and places, as well as loving and caring, all those separate voices internally. And I guess I don't know how to pose that as a question. Yeah, what
I can respond to it as a question, because it sounds, I just recently reread James Carey's Communication and Culture, using it in my class, and he differentiates between the transmission model and the ritual model of communication. And I'm talking about interpretation, which is in the realm of speech and in the realm of understanding through speech and language, but there's a hell of a lot of world that's not discussed, in my talk, that is very well, I think, appreciated in the ritual model of communication, which is always under-discussed and under-theorized. It's not about sending and persuading, it's about spending time together. We've been talking to each other for a while, but we've also been eating together, and we've just been sitting near each other and having our little auras, interact. So there's a lot that goes on communicatively. I agree that it really doesn't get captured by any one of these ways of trying to explain things. I think Royce is just trying to help stitch together how language can sometimes be a bridge. That we're not always we're not always doing the transmission model where we're trying to exert power across space and time, but that sometimes interpretation means I need to figure out what you're trying to say. That's part of our job, is to not be sending so much, but to be listening, or to be listening even to what ourselves are telling us. And so I think it does try to get at some of those aspects of communication better than other folks who kept going, I don't understand, we have concepts and percepts, how can we possibly talk to each other? I feel like at least Royce gave it a shot. And so, but yes, there's a whole territory of singing, chanting, praying together, and other kinds of energies that are going on that are way beneath the surface that don't seem to be articulated in any of these theories.
Okay. You want to respond to that?
Nope, I was gonna take another question.
I think we need to stop right here. We can continue talking to each other. Coffee break until 4 o'clock. Thank you very much.